So hello and welcome to Alive. I'm so glad you guys are joining us. And my guest tonight has a very interesting story. Sometimes life throws unexpected things at us, and they cause us sometimes an inconvenience, but other times they seriously derail our lives. And I'm wondering if that has ever happened to any of you. Have any of you had something happen in your life where you were going down a path and then all of a sudden something happened and you find yourself in a situation you never thought you were going to be in? Well, my guest today is a friend. I don't think she's ever met a stranger. She's kind and thoughtful, and she's intelligent. She's a successful professional. She has a wonderful family. And she's always been very active and quite athletic. But earlier this year, she had an accident while she was skiing that basically stopped her life. And she couldn't work, she couldn't run, she couldn't walk, she couldn't go anywhere. And this experience challenged her. But I believe that you'll find that it also changed her. So I want to welcome Marci Gordon to Alive.
Thank you.
How was that introduction?
It was really, really nice. I never would have considered myself athletic.
Really?
So I appreciate that. Yeah.
Well,
may shock you, I never played any sports. So growing up.
But you know what? Athletic can also mean runner, active.
Yeah.
And when they find out what happened to you, they're going to go, yeah, she's athletic. Yes. So, and you hike, you do all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Anything outdoors.
Yeah.
You're correct.
We need to do something like that, or kayak.
I know.
Hike. You have your own boat, right?
I know. Yeah.
And I haven't been on it yet.
But I do
Thank you.
Kayaking and paddleboarding. So
yes.
Just not where there's alligators.
Yeah. Well, that's because you're smart. Okay. Yeah. Anyway. So we actually tried this interview a few months ago. Mm-hmm. And when you came in, we were at the table and you had to prop your leg up because it was in a splint, or what was it called?
Yes, I was down. That's when I was on my crutches.
Crutches, okay.
And it was still a lot more difficult to bend.
Yeah, just
I worked really, really hard to get to be able to bend again. Yes.
Well, we're not going to get into the accident yet because there was an accident. What I would like to do is let people get to know you a little bit if they don't know you already. Mm-hmm. And if you would tell people a little bit about yourself and what your childhood was like, where you grew up and that kind of stuff.
Okay. So it's not that exciting, I don't think. But I grew up in the Midwest. I, but went to school during the school year. I did work, which is not completely uncommon in the Midwest, on a family farm during the summer times. So
what kind of farm was it?
It was vegetables. So we grew all kinds of fresh vegetables people could buy at our family farm. They could drive out there and purchase them, or we did supply some of the local grocery stores.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So kind of a fun story about that is I just always grew up working on the family's farm. And so I never knew there was anything different. Like, when you're little, like whatever your home life is, that's the world. Like that's all you know. Yeah. So one summer, my parents had gone different ways and my mom took us and we didn't have to work at the family farm. And I remember going to the local public pool and seeing kids I went to elementary school with. And I'm like, looking around, I'm like, wait a second. This is what everybody else does over the summer. They go to the pool and swim and
have fun.
I call it my summer of bliss. It was fantastic. So, yeah. So fast forward, then went back to work the next summer and worked, through high school during summers only.
Yeah, because what's it? Wisconsin, right?
No, it's Nebraska.
Oh, Nebraska. That's right, Nebraska. Yeah. So cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can only really work in the summer, on the farm.
Yeah, June through November is the last harvest.
Okay. So,
and I'm not good at growing vegetables down here. If anyone asks and is like, I'm going to ask Marci to help me, I learned very quickly because I tried several times. Florida soil is completely different.
Yeah.
And I'm not good at growing things down here that produce good fruit.
Right.
Flowers, trees.
So no emails, no phone calls. You're
I mean, you
done.
can ask me, but I'll tell you to just ship in some dirt from somewhere else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in your family, how many siblings did you have? Where were you in the mix?
Yeah, I'm the youngest of three.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, we all worked out there on the farm.
So
Yeah.
3 kids. Were you raised in a Christian home, or what was it like?
Yes, but Christian, kind of different how some people think. Like, we didn't go to church. I remember going through some Catholicism classes, like Sunday school, but it was very like hit or miss. And
Yeah.
it didn't always work with like I always had some kind of job like collecting golf balls, delivering newspapers, always something starting in elementary school all the way through. So
It wasn't in the
it wasn't a
pattern
priority.
okay.
No. Yeah.
So you didn't really go to church. You said something, and I don't know. We'll kind of touch on it now, and I'm going to quote you. You said you can grow up in a family that claims to be Christian and still feel broken.
Oh yeah, 100%. And everything that was ever, which at the time you don't know as a kid, again, that's your life, that's normal. You figure everybody else is going through the same set of circumstances. And then you get older and you start being around other people's families and you're like, oh, wait, those things that broke me, broke who I was, broke my spirit, made you feel lesser than. That was not necessarily normal. Not everybody does that.
Right.
So, and that was all by people that, are practicing Christians. So I always had a strong belief there was something more and that, something was looking over me, watching over me, protecting me. I just wouldn't ever say I knew what it was until like when I started Bible study and talking about it more with other people that were trying to learn and expand their knowledge also.
You had something happen to you when you were in high school that maybe kind of affirmed that as well. Explain what happened.
Yeah. So again, not completely uncommon. Sometimes in the Midwest, like people would just get in their cars and all meet on someone's farm and hang out on a weekend night. So I was sharing with you guys in Bible study that was probably the first time I really remember. So I'd gone off to use the restroom and it was right off the Missouri River, which is a fast-moving river in the Midwest, and slipped and started falling. And I remember and it happened so fast that I was like, this is really steep. This is not good. I'm going to probably, die. And out of nowhere, I heard a voice, and it was a man's voice that said, reach up. And I kind of reached up and I looked and, grabbed onto the root of a tree. And that is then I pulled myself up and I, forever will believe that was God looking out for me. So then I kind of felt like, well, I must have some purpose here on earth. Like I'm here for something.
Yeah.
And
I think that's a great sermon illustration. Maybe I'll use that someday. You reached up, you heard God, and you grabbed a hold of the root.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, but I think it's really cool that you, you realized that it wasn't just some odd, it was a moment where you're like, no, God is there.
It was a moment of pure clarity.
Yes.
And so I still remember it to this day, many years later, like that voice saying to reach up. And there happened to be a really strong root right there.
I love it.
To grab onto.
Now, speaking of grabbing onto the root, it was during COVID. It was all weird. Everybody's like, I met you at church before that. I met you at church. And then during COVID, I thought I have to start a Bible study. And your face kept coming before me. I'm like,
That's kind of scary.
It was a nightmare. I don't know. No, just kidding. And I'm like, I have to call Marci. I have to see if she went. So I reached out to, I think, 6 or 7 women and said, do you guys want to want to meet. Did we meet online? I can't remember if we started online.
We kind of went back and forth because you never knew
We were
what was right.
outside.
Like,
Yes.
is it okay? Is it not okay? So we ended up that we would meet in person, but outside.
Yes.
Which worked okay until it got really hot.
And the mosquitoes.
Yeah.
And then we're like, I think we'll take a chance.
Yeah.
So we started meeting inside. And I remember talking to everyone about reading the Bible. And so we started with, we'll read about 5 chapters a week, one a day, like for 5 days in a row. We'll write down, what God says to, or what we observe. We used actually the SOAP method, which is you read the scripture, one chapter, you write down a verse or something, what you observe, and then how it applies in a prayer, if you followed it exactly. A lot of people did different things. And just not reading it for history, but reading it for life application. Mm-hmm. And we went through the New Testament. We went through the Gospels. And had you ever read the Bible before?
And that's why I'm smiling, because you're being really, really kind.
What?
Because when I read through, it was like working with an infant. Everybody else in Bible study had either read the Bible or, led our preschool. So she knows something about it, is a pastor. Or like Laura, who's a walking encyclopedia about Christianity and the Bible. And then there was me. And I always had really the most basic childlike viewpoint and or question about what I was reading.
Which was fantastic. You think it would,
but
I mean, it's so true because we're supposed to read the Bible with this open, expectant heart. That's what you did. I was very impressed and still am impressed with your interpretation of what God was saying to you. That's the Bible for you. Anybody can read it. You can start from the beginning and know nothing, or you can be an expert, but God still shows you new things. That's, I think, why it's called the living word, because...
Well, and I highly recommend doing the Bible study, because in a group, no matter what group size or expertise, because I had tried reading the Bible several times before, and it never made sense. And I had so many questions, and, now you can Google and look things up, and there's so many different online platforms there where there's pastors that explain,
each
and
chapter
it's wonderful,
and verse.
But there's something about being in person with the group where you can share. Everybody kind of has a different take.
Yeah.
And talk about where everyone's coming from. Yeah. It was very helpful for me.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I've said a million times that I was a Christian for a long time before I did that, and it literally changed my entire life. Just reading the Bible consistently and meeting with a group of people that talked about it, and it was awesome. Mm-hmm. So that's where your faith started growing. And then, so how long had you been in the Bible? A year and a half, maybe?
Yeah, we'd made it through the New Testament, and then we're starting the Old.
Right.
When I got into the skiing accident.
Yeah. Yes. So why don't you tell us about the accident?
Yeah. Yeah. See, now I'm on the other side of it, so I can talk a little bit more with a smile on my face about it. So I was skiing down a somewhat easy run to meet my family for lunch. And I guess the important thing for people to know that ski is that I literally was just skiing straight down. Nobody ran into me. Nobody cut me off. I mean, I didn't fall. I just heard one pop and then a second pop. Again, I'll touch on, I never played sports, so I've never been injured before, so I didn't realize the pops were my body. I thought it was the ski patrol. They do flares sometimes for avalanches where we were skiing, so there had been an avalanche in the area the week prior. Just thought they were shooting, so I kind of was looking around. I'm like, that's weird. What are those pops? And then out of the corner of my eye, I saw someone coming across my lane. So I started to put weight on my right leg to turn. I heard a third pop and a grinding sound. And then I felt a lot of pain, and I realized the noises were me,
Oh my goodness.
not something outside. So then I just fell backwards because I figured I've hurt myself. I shouldn't keep skiing on it because in my older age, I've learned I have limitations. And then unfortunately, when I fell, my ski boot locked in and the ski didn't pop off. So I remember looking down at my knee and knowing my leg should not be able to bend that way. And I had to wait. One of my older child saw that I fell and was hurt, and he took off his skis, ran up the hill to me to punch my skis off my boots, while my younger son skied down to get ski patrol to come and get me, take me down.
Ow. So while you were there, I'm looking at something. I made notes here. You were looking over in this. You said, you told me that you said to yourself, okay, God.
I knew, I was in a lot of pain immediately, which, I didn't know what I'd done. I mean, I had no idea. I just knew that it hurt. And so I figured I probably broke something. And so I remember laying there and being like, this is worse pain than delivering a child. And I kind of thought that was painful. And so I looked up at the mountain, and it's so beautiful up there. And I just thought, okay, there's a lesson here. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm going to have faith and believe that everything's going to be okay, and that this is going to make me a better person on the other side of it. Now, saying all that, I thought it was I probably broke something. I would maybe have to have surgery. I'd be off my feet for a month, and then rehab, and it would only affect my life for I don't know, maybe a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's your optimistic attitude.
Yeah.
And I like the fact.
And then I learned
that's not what happened.
True.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that you immediately went to, okay, this is a lesson. What can I learn? A lot of people don't do that. They go to the opposite, which is, God hates me.
Yeah.
My life's awful.
Well, I used to do that, and that didn't really work so well.
Yes.
So somewhere along the way, I realized it was just better to start with the positive. And obviously, bad things happen.
Right.
All the time. I mean, we're inundated with the news about bad things that are happening every day. I mean, while you and I are sitting here, something bad is happening that, we are going to feel about, even though it may not happen to us. I think it still affects you. But I learned along the way that if I was positive about things, even if they didn't work out the way I wanted to, I mean, I've been extremely lucky in life.
Yeah.
In the way it has worked out. So
you learned pretty quickly, though, that this wasn't going to be a quick fix. I mean, you told this story because you had to get back home.
Yeah.
So you had to first get on a plane.
Yeah.
How did that go?
Well, when I first knew something wasn't right is when they were wheeling me back into the little emergency center, and the nurse and the doctor both came and took my hand and was like, "Don't give up on skiing if you love it." And I was like, come on, this can't be that bad. I mean, how long is this going to, this can't be that bad. And I thought it was kind of odd that they both said something to me like that after looking at the x-rays. And so, but, whatever, you're just focused on getting back home and getting treatment. And then they put you in a full leg brace so you can't move at all. And that I had to get back on the plane. And we were flying Southwest Airlines. So if anybody knows that airline, there's no first class where you can stretch your leg out.
Right.
So when I was going through the airport and they put you in a wheelchair, and they're all so kind and really nice and helpful about that, they They said, we'll board you first so you can get one of the seats in the front row, and your husband can sit next to you so you can stretch your leg out. That's the bulkhead row. So you're able to do that. And because obviously I can't sit in the exit row.
Right.
Because, that whole thing. So I wouldn't be able to help anybody
No.
leave in an emergency exit. So we go to board the plane, but Southwest had flown from somewhere else and had just touched down and was picking us up. So we go to board the plane, and I'm like, hopping along with my crutches. They take you to the wheelchair right to the plane, and then you got to, kind of hop your way on. And I was first, and I get there, and I was in a lot of pain. So, you're just kind of quiet and trying to just get in your seat and be ready for the 4-hour flight home. And I look, and all 6 seats are taken. There's somebody in every seat. And I was like, excuse me, I need to keep my legs straight. I'm really sorry to bother you, but can one of you move so that I can sit down? And they all looked up at me and were like, one seat was empty. And I'm like, or can I just take that one and someone move for my husband? They all looked up to me and they said, no, these are our seats. We have these,
It's unbelievable.
We're not moving. And that empty seat is my friend who's in the bathroom. So I was like, okay, like I was so stunned. I didn't know what to say.
Awful.
And my husband was like, what do you want? What should we do? And I'm like, I guess I'll just hop back, to a row near the exit row and hope for the best. But with the crutches, you're so wide, it was hard to get past the first row.
Goodness.
And as I'm starting to try to turn sideways to get past the first row, the flight attendant comes walking down and he's like, what are you doing? You have to sit up here. And I'm like, well, they're all taken. And he turned around and he looked and he's like, shame on all of you. She has to sit here. 2 of you get up and move and do the right thing. And they got up and they moved, and they just moved back to the second row. And the flight attendant helped me get, seated, got me a bag of ice to put on my knee. And it was so wonderful. And I thought to myself, how great is it? Like, that's not part of his job description.
Yeah, right.
His job description is to get people off the plane safely, and on. That's it. Like,
yes,
he doesn't have to do that. But he saw somebody who was hurting and had a need, and he stepped up, no questions asked, and
that's fantastic.
Right away helped.
Thankfully.
Yeah. So it was.
So you started
There was a lot of little things like that. And like when we landed in the airport, I was struggling to go to the bathroom because this was a new way of life for me. And I was still learning my limitations. And some random woman who I'd never met came up and was like, can I help you hold the door open? And I'm like, that would be awesome. And then she's like, do you want me to stand here to make sure it closes? And I'm like, yeah, kind of, because I never thought about it. But in handicapped bathrooms, if you don't turn around and get the door closed, you're so far away, the door could just swing open. See, I learned so many new things.
Wow. Yeah. So that was just the beginning. And you had, when you got back, you learned the seriousness of your injury. I want you to tell what your injury was, and then I want you to tell about the 2 doctors that you had and how you had this moment.
Yeah. So, that's right. See, all of it goes by and you heal, and then you just kind of forget.
I have all my notes.
And you take for granted.
Yeah.
So it's good to talk about it again. So I, went into my husband had called ahead and got me an appointment the first day we were back, and they took more of their own x-rays. And I'll never forget, they obviously thought I didn't have as serious of an injury because they made me bend it for the x-rays. And I literally was crying. I'm like, I don't think I can do this. This hurts really bad. And they're like, well, the surgeon needs to see it at this angle. And then went in, and the surgeon didn't feel like they could fix everything. And I just had this gut feeling like, this is not right. Like, I'm not that old. I don't want to live the rest of my life only being able to move straight forward or walk straight back. Like, I want to be able to still do things that I enjoy doing. And so I went home. I didn't schedule surgery. And I asked my husband, I'm like, I just don't feel good. I think I should get a second opinion. And then that's when he reached out to a listserv that he's on and asked people, if your wife had this injury, because then I found out that my injury was they call it the terrible triad, which is not a good name, but you have 4 ligaments in your knee that keeps your upper part of your knee connected to the lower part. It's those 4 ligaments, and I had sheared off 3 of the 4. Only the back one was still partially attached. And then I had several hairline fractures of my tibia plateau, but the 2 bones were perfectly lined up, so I didn't need any type of rod or anything put
my
in,
goodness, thankfully.
which, yes, is a huge blessing. I just had to keep the 2 bones perfectly aligned for X amount of time and then hopefully get the ligaments repaired.
And the first doctor gave you like a
Just was going to repair the one and then hope for the best. When they got in there, maybe they could repair him, but he didn't feel good about it just because of the extent of the damage done. And the one ligament, my lateral meniscus, when it ripped off, it actually curled up on itself. They call it a bucket handle tear and was tucked into my kneecap, which was causing a lot of the pain because you can't, like every time I tried to bend or straighten, it was rubbing against that. So that said, my husband reached out, got a bunch of responses back. Everybody said the same surgeon. So I called his office right away, tried to get an appointment. And of course, he's scheduled a month out. And the whole time, like I'm trying to keep the pain in check with pain medicine, but very aware of like I didn't want to be on pain medicine longer than I had to be. And so he reached out and asked if anybody knew the surgeon personally, if there was any chance we could call and explain my injury and that it was more than an ACL tear. So I was in a lot of pain and maybe I could come in to see him sooner. And this was on a Tuesday. And by Friday, we still hadn't heard back. One of the gentlemen on the listserv said, well, I don't really know him, but I know a mutual friend. I'll reach out. And then we never heard back. And that person checked in on Friday afternoon and said, have you ever heard back from the surgeon? And my husband's like, no. But I mean, these guys and women are busy. I mean, their office hours are like, they're seeing 100 patients. And then when they're in surgery, I mean, there's a reason it's hard to get in and see him is he's busy. Yeah. And he's helping other people walk again. So it was Friday afternoon. I just wasn't sleeping, lots of pain. I'd kind of reached my break point of being exhausted. Yeah. And when you try to lay down or you move at all, because you can't be on your feet, so you're laying down all day, it hurts. So it's hard to sleep or anything. And I went to take a shower, and I mean, shame is out the door. Like, I can't walk. I can't be on my feet. So my husband literally has to help me. One friend let us borrow a shower chair. He has to help me get into the shower and out of the shower. Yeah. A bath is out of the question.
You're completely dependent.
So, yes, and I'm not used to that at all. And so he helps me get in the shower. I'm showering. He steps outside and his cell phone rings. He picks it up and I can hear him talking, but I can't really hear what he's saying. And I'm sitting in the shower, hot water pouring down on me, which felt wonderful.
But
and
before you
crying.
Yeah, okay.
I lost it because I'm like, I'm in pain. I don't know how this is going to get better. I can't get in to see the surgeon for a month. Like mentally, I'm thinking to myself, okay, deep breaths. I can make it a month. I don't want to make it a month, but I can do this. Like it could be worse. And this was back, end of March. And so I remember, we were doing getting ready for Easter and doing the Bible study about Holy Week. And I'm like, seriously, I'm boo-hooing in the shower. I'm going to walk again. First of all, I'm sitting in a house with running water that's clean and hot. I'm crying about this. And then I'm like, started thinking to myself, how did Jesus feel when he knew he's going to be on a cross, 2 stakes through his hands, hanging there by himself, nobody caring for him, bringing him into the shower, helping him get out. I mean, the selfless act of love each day, taking care of me on top of friends, neighbors, all these people that were checking in on me and helping. Yeah. And I'm sitting in here crying. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna buck up. I'm gonna do this. So I get done and, I tell my husband I'm done and come help me get out and everything and dry off. And he's like, just a second. And then he opens the door and I hear that he's on the cell phone. The surgeon had called his cell phone and said to him, I've gotten 3 separate messages today that I need to call this person on this number about his wife. They need help. And so he called on a Friday at 5:30. He'd probably been in his office or in surgery all day.
Yeah.
But he felt compelled to reach out and help. And I mean, listen, he's in the part of his career. He doesn't need to do that.
Right.
He does it out of the goodness of his heart. And he truly, obviously wants to help people get better. So he called. My husband explained everything, sent him, the MRIs. And he's like, oh, no, have her come in next Tuesday. Again, this was on a Friday. So it cut my wait time down from a month to like 4 days, which mentally I could do 4 days.
Well, and I mean, it's amazing to me that you were at the point of, I can't take it anymore. But then you switched your thinking, which you've even talked about when you were up on the mountain, you pondered it, and your brain, you started thinking about yourself in light of Jesus and what Jesus had gone through, and you didn't feel sorry for yourself. But God knew how much pain you were in, and it was then like he gave you that bit of encouragement. It's like, I see you, I've got you.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, and that was like the beginning of. I mean, that was another moment where God was present with you. You had the surgery; it went well, but then and we're going to kind of run through some of this, but you were down. Like you thought you might be able to like gimp around, but you're like, nope.
I thought, well, I mean, I've known a handful of people who've had total knees. Like to me, total knee sounds like, I mean, it's your total knee. Right. That's obviously a much bigger surgery.
You would think.
And they're up and starting rehab in a couple weeks and they're moving around. I mean, some people in 5 days. So, I mean, come on. Like, how long can it be? 2-3 weeks and I'll be, up and moving. And after that was, it was a little bit of an eye-opener when I went in for my post-op visit, and he was like, okay, so for 12 to 13 weeks, you will not put any weight on that leg. And I was like, wait, are you sure? Because I feel like a total knee would be a bigger deal. And so I should be able to move along, I don't know, maybe in a month. Yeah, that was not the reality. So lesson learned, tearing 3 of the 4 ligaments is you have to just give your body a lot longer to heal.
The ligaments take longer to reconnect. So apparently, you were like in a chair.
So I had,
a scooter.
We had wonderful friends who had wheelchair that I could borrow so that, I mean, my poor sweet husband, like, imagine me 24 hours a day, not being able to get out of bed unless somebody pushes me in a wheelchair. And I'm so used to being able to just go and do whatever I want.
Right. I would have lost
driving,
my mind.
Because I did my right leg.
Oh, yeah,
so
that's
no driving.
I think the last time when we were interviewed you before wasn't like one of the first times.
Oh, yeah, that I just started driving. And I can only drive like so many, like 5 miles at a time.
What was the time? So it was like 12 weeks that or was it longer?
So it was 110 days of no weight on my leg. Not that I'm keeping track, but I for sure kept track. And so, I borrowed a wheelchair. I had the crutches to go to and from the bathroom because that's another interesting thing. You don't realize your house is not a good handicap accessible house until you come home needing it to be, and you realize that it's not as good as you thought. And then the same friends had a battery-operated scooter that they let me borrow so that I could get, because I tried going out on my wheelchair on my own, and it proved to be too difficult to do
regular
on the
wheelchair?
Sidewalk, like to push. So
you had a
unless
scooter.
my husband was home, or I had a lot of very kind friends and neighbors who came over and pushed me in my wheelchair so I could get out of the house for a while.
So
because my kids were back in school, so
and they're older, so they're gone.
Yeah.
So you're there by yourself, and you're in your scooter
Me and
getting
my thoughts
around
all day. Yeah.
So did you told a couple stories about like getting caught out in the neighborhood?
Yes. So my scooter only had 2 speeds, 1 turtle or 2 turtles. And I used to joke with my husband, like, okay, I could probably soup this scooter up and then I could go farther. And he was always shaking his head like, no. And so
You need to stay as close
I tipped
as
it
possible.
over once
my
before
goodness.
surgery, though.
Before surgery?
Yeah. So I figured like that couldn't have been that bad. And I had like that super big brace on. So and it was a really slow
And then you broke your wrist
fall.
in the no, I'm just kidding.
I didn't do that. Thank God. And then I high centered it twice trying to go over a curb. Scooter's not made for that.
No.
I got it stuck in the lawn. I was trying to water my flowers, and the wet grass, the scooter just sank down, and the wheels kept spinning, and I had to call a friend and
So you always had your cell phone with you, right?
Yeah. Well, a couple times I didn't have my cell phone. And so that was one of the times I was high centered down the street from my house. I tried to go up the curb to pick up some dog poo from my dog, and I got high centered. And so then I literally was like, I guess I'll just wait till someone happens upon me, because I didn't have a way to stand up or crawl. So I was just stuck.
My goodness.
And then, talk about luck of, how lucky I am. A neighbor who normally walks first thing in the morning happened to be walking at like 10:30 that day. She happened upon me and she's like, are you stuck? I'm like, yes, I am. And thankfully, she's strong enough that she was able to get me unstuck so I could
I mean, I know we're laughing about it, but I know.
Well, it's funny now.
At the time,
because I no longer need the scooter.
Yes.
But I did cry several times.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. And I ran out of battery twice.
Oh my goodness.
On my scooter. And I just had to wait until someone could come get me.
Oh. So this is, what would you say has been your deepest learning in all of this?
Ooh, I've had a lot of learning. One is that I was not very good at asking for help or accepting help. And I think I'm better at it, but I'm sure I could still get even better. And I was just humbled to my core. I mean, you can't do anything. And it was wonderful in many ways to get to see that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I chose to be in a wheelchair for just a day to see what it would be like. I was in it for a while. And so then, like, my husband would try to find things to take me to go do every weekend when he was off of work so I could get outside. And, we live in this beautiful state. And he knows how much I love being outside. He's like, well, maybe we can go to the beach. Can't go on sand.
Right.
Well, maybe we can go to the econ. No paved ways. Like, you can't, it's a dirt path.
So you learn the limitations
So he found that there's just more limitations. And listen, we live in a country that has wonderful ADA rules and regulations. Like, our country's much better than many others as far as being handicap accessible. But it really opened my eyes to still how limited it is. And I remember coming to the funeral here at church, and, the reception afterwards, like I'm being wheeled around and everyone's standing and talking, and I'm at their butt level.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, like putting myself in some of my clients' shoes that are in a wheelchair for the rest of their life. Like,
Yeah.
I get it. Now I get why there's a push to make technology where the wheelchair can have them stand up, because
Oh.
you're spending your whole life talking to people's butts.
And they're talking down.
And they're talking down at you. So
I just had on the show a couple weeks ago my friend from high school who had a car accident, and he's a quadriplegic.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about like coming home, and he said like my whole world was completely, how do you live like this?
Because the countertops are too tall. And it was really a good eye-opening for me, because I just, I thought I knew, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good reminder.
How have you learned more about God? Have you learned about God, or have you learned more about you? And
Well, yeah, I learned a lot about me and how much I still needed to learn and grow. And I was thinking about that this morning. Is I started, like, for Bible study, I would always read before we met, but it was erratic. Like, maybe it was in the afternoon, maybe it was the hour before we met. Sometimes it would be in the morning when I was walking. I would listen to it on my phone through the app, but it wasn't a set routine. Right. And then when I was bedridden, I had, I was up a lot more. So I would be up at like 5 a.m. I couldn't start work. And thankfully I could do everything on the laptop or on the phone. But that's really not till 8:39. So I had this time in the morning, and I couldn't be up making breakfast for my son. Mm-hmm. So I started reading different scripture each morning, and I've continued that. And it's just a wonderful way for me to start my day. And it's been amazing, because when I have that quiet time to read, something will catch my eye that didn't the last time I read through.
That's right.
Because I'm rereading the New Testament again, because I like more of the happy stuff. So when I'm having a bad day, I'll go back to like Ephesians or Roman, or right now I'm reading Luke again, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is so much, or James. Something more uplifting and happy, because we're in the Old Testament.
Right, we are.
It's just a lot of fighting.
It's pretty intense at times, yeah.
It's just everybody's fighting, and I think to myself, some things never change. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true, but I love that. I love the fact that we started in the beginning talking about the Bible study, and then we're ending with you talking about you're still in the Word of God, and we're still in Bible study.
Yeah.
It's been a crazy summer, so a lot of people haven't been able to meet. But Bible study is not about reading a book. It's about encountering God every single day. And so when you start your day and you open the Word and you let the Spirit speak and you just kind of hang out with God, it's like my favorite time. I get a cup of coffee.
Yep.
I sit there and read and think about it all throughout the day. I love that. So do you have any words of encouragement? If there's somebody who's really down right now, who's had something happen and their life is like off and they're not able to do what they used to do, would you give them any words of encouragement?
Ooh. I tend towards the positive side of things, as you know. So I always think what works for me is I always think to myself, it could be worse. It could always be worse. No matter how bad it is, it could be worse. I remember one of my first thoughts when I found out the extent of the surgery I was going to have, I was like, well, it could be worse. It could have been both knees. And then I started, you can find a way to make it worse. And then that made me grateful.
Yes.
That I just had this injury. And the lesson I think God was trying to get me to slow down. I had a very exhaustive Christmas, I know, because I called you to talk to you about that. And I don't think I appreciated just how worn out spiritually and emotionally I was. And I think it was God's he tried to slow me down, but I've always I just keep moving forward, just keep moving forward. And so he's like, okay, well, I'm going to take your knee out and you're going to sit and be in your thoughts and in my word for 110 days. And I do remember somewhere along the way being like, oh, I hope I learned this lesson because I don't want to repeat this. I don't know if I have it in me to do this again. So if you're looking for the positive, sometimes it'll spring up. I don't know.
The Bible talks about fixing your thoughts on whatsoever is true and pure and good. And I mean, those are the things that we're supposed to fix. So what that means is you can be over here on the negative, but we have the capability, the capacity to change our thinking and to fix our thoughts on what's good. And we can do that. So, there've been a couple times today that you've said that you were here, but then you thought about this. You were here, but you thought about this. And I think it's really a lesson for anyone. If you have a predisposition to be a negative, the glass is half empty. We're not saying that you have to be over here, oh, it's wonderful, but you can change and you can begin fixing and focusing on the more positive side and what maybe God is teaching you in it, which is what you've done. So before we close, the accident was on what date?
It was March 18th.
March 18th. So today is August the 29th.
Yeah.
And you're walking.
Yeah, and I think I've been walking for 2 weeks now.
So that's 6 months, right?
Almost, yeah. It was a lot longer. It was much longer than my initial thought that it would just be a couple weeks.
Yeah, it's
maybe a month.
It's
tops.
way longer.
And I remember the first time going back when the surgeon was like, okay, everything looks great. You have I'll see you in another 4 to 6 weeks. And then we'll look at you getting to put 50% of your weight on the leg. And I remember I was like, my poor husband, again, had to drive me. So, he's the one who has to deal with me on the drive home. And I was like, can you believe this? I've done everything I'm supposed to do. And now looking back, I just needed that time to heal all around. And so.
Are you going to ski again?
I am. I'm going to give it a try again next March. It'll be 1 year. The surgeon told me.
We need to be laying hands on you.
Yep, 8 to 10 months, and I would be able to. And here's the thing.
Oh, my goodness.
I love doing it. Yeah. And I know mentally if I don't go try again this year, I won't.
Yeah, I understand that.
At the age of 50, I will have given up something that I absolutely love doing. And I'm lucky enough to be able to go do it.
Oh, yeah.
So
I'm impressed that if I was in your situation, I would have gained 100 pounds. I literally would have. I would have eaten all the time.
Because it was so painful, even after surgery. Because people have asked me that, and I'm like, and my one neighbor, bless her heart, she fed us because I couldn't be up making food. My husband's working all day. Our other son's in school. And then he works and plays the sport. So she would make sure we had dinner every night. And she knows, I was in so much pain. And I'm one of those people that when I'm in pain, I don't like to take all the pain medicine. So I just kind of, but I couldn't eat.
Yeah.
I even had a hard time drinking as much water as I was supposed to drink.
Wow.
And I ate exactly what I had to make sure that my body was rebuilding. And even then, it was forcing it down. Yeah. So you might be surprised if you're in enough pain.
Not that I want that to happen.
No.
But I don't know. I still think I probably would. Well, listen, thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. Mm-hmm. I'm super excited that you're, I couldn't believe it when I saw you walking in.
I kind of feel like I'm showing off now.
You are.
Every time I walk with both legs,
I'm like, look at me.
I know. Ooh, but no dancing for another year. It's a little bit.
But you can ski?
Yeah, because apparently dancing is a lot of like pivoting and
If you're a good dancer, I mean, like for
well,
me,
and
maybe
with me, maybe it's the erratic movement of my knee.
it's the
So
Elaine Bennis
yeah,
Seinfeld
yes,
dance
that's kind of my
thing.
dancing
Okay,
style.
okay.
So
All right. Now I
apparently,
could see
I
wait another year
still,
for that.
yeah. It's going to be a little while. Maybe next summer if I'm really
Okay.
good.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, I'm going to sign off, guys. I thank you so much for watching. And if you like this video, share it with a friend. Have an awesome day.